Time now for business. We say hello to Kate Moody.
Hi there.
It's day 40 of French strikes against pension reforms. Over the weekend, there was the announcement of a concession. The strikes are continuing. How's it going?
Well, it feels long if you're living in Paris, doesn't it, Francois? Negotiations set to continue between the unions and the government. As you said, Monday, the 40th day of uninterrupted strikes affecting transport in the Paris area. Lawyers are also on strike across the country. A number of trials have been delayed. Now, the head of France's largest union has welcomed this weekend's announcement by Prime Minister Edouard Philippe that he'll be abandoning that so-called pivot age, which would have raised from 62 to 64 the age at which full retirements can be collected. But the CFDT has warned that it is far from the end of the story. More hardline unions, meanwhile, say that concession is nothing but a smokescreen, and they're calling for strikes and demonstrations to continue across the country. Well, meanwhile, Germany's pension system is increasingly in the spotlight as well. New figures show that nearly 1 in 5 German retirees are at risk of falling under the poverty line. The figure in France is closer to 7%. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development has called for an overhaul of the German system, saying it's both too expensive to keep going and not enough to support an aging population. Sam Bradpiece has more.
For decades, Germany was seen as an economic powerhouse, a model for growth, efficiency and fiscal responsibility. But the growing number of pensioners left counting their pennies paints another picture. The number of seniors at risk of poverty has risen by a third since 2010. That means more than 3 million people, nearly a fifth of Germany's pensioner population, are living on less than 13,600 euros per year. Part of the problem lies in the country's pension system. Ursula worked for 46 years as an architect. Now, in her 80s, she gets 833 euros per month.
I was shocked when I saw this pitiful amount. After so many years of working and having raised 3 children, I couldn't believe it.
Germany has a pay-as-you-go pension system tied to earnings, with combined payments coming from the state, employers and individuals. This leaves low-paid workers and the self-employed particularly disadvantaged.
Having hobbies or going on holiday, it's simply impossible.
It is shameful in a rich country like Germany.
In light of the crisis, the government has struck a deal to guarantee a basic pension for low-income workers. The retirement age is set to increase to 67 by 2031, but the central bank has warned that an increase to 69 will be required to take pressure off a system that could crack under an ageing population.
Let's check in on the day's trading action now. A fairly flat close for the major European indices. Investors keeping an eye, of course, on geopolitical developments in the Middle East and that long-awaited signing of the trade deal between the US and China. That's due to take place on Wednesday. The London FTSE closing just above the flat line there. The CAC 40 and DAX both in the red. The Dow Jones has gained about 100 points. Wall Street on the rise as Bloomberg reports that Washington is set to remove China from a list of currency-manipulating countries just 5 months after it was placed on that list. That increasing optimism ahead of the signing of that trade deal. The Nasdaq outperforming there, up 0.75 percentage point as Tesla shares rise 8%. Well, the UK economy shrank in November, further raising concerns about its future as the January 31st Brexit deadline approaches. New data from the Office for National Statistics showed a sharper than expected 0.3% contraction in the month of November. Figures for the 2 previous months were slightly revised upwards for 0.1% growth over that 3-month period. Drops in manufacturing and services output dragged down the economy as a whole. Business uncertainty was slightly eased by the Conservative Party's decisive victory in December's election, ensuring their parliamentary majority and the date of the UK's exit from the EU. The weak economic outlook has raised speculation that the Bank of England could cut interest rates, with 3 of the committee's 9 policymakers saying they'll support that move at their next meeting at the end of this month. Well, that's put pressure on the pound. It slid below $1.30 and under €1.17, down 0.7% there against the euro this hour. Boeing's new chief executive takes over the troubled aviation giant this Monday. David Calhoun has served on Boeing's board for the past 10 years, following 2 decades at General Electric. He'll be trying to restore the reputation and financial outlook as Boeing struggles to regain its footing. Calhoun saying that he is confident in the future as he takes over. Boeing has halted production of its 737 MAX fleet, pending flight approval from regulators around the world. The planes have been grounded since last March, following the second deadly accident, which killed 346 people. Meanwhile, his predecessor, Dennis Muhlenberg, is leaving without severance pay or an annual bonus. A filing, though, confirms that he'll be receiving $62 million in compensation and pension benefits as he heads into retirement. A lot of criticism about that number, Francois, especially given the state that he's left Boeing in. A lot of people saying, does he really deserve that?
Many thanks for that, Kate Moody. We'll have more business news for you later. It's time now